Made it into Newfoundland last night on the ferry. A couple cars ahead of me was an 80 Series Land Cruiser, and he was planning on heading out camping for a couple nights.
As we started our final descent, the clouds became more dramatic, and we approached what's sure to become one of my all-time favorite campsites. This moment captures a strong essence of what overlanding means to me. It's about going out your front door and seeing what's out there. It's about pushing yourself, pushing your rig, and winding up in these incredible places. It's about meeting new people, learning a thing or two from them, and discovering quiet parts of the world few ever will. To quote Graham Cahill, "This is why I own a four-wheel drive." I want to be able to look back on my life and have good stories about the world I got to experience, the people I met, and some of the troubles and triumphs I had along the way. For now, I'm finding my stories by throwing a bunch of gear in the back of a Toyota and driving to faraway places. However you find your stories, whether it's through backpacking, volunteering, competing, teaching, coaching, or maybe more normal forms of travel, or whatever, don't forget, each of us is in charge of writing our own personal legend. As we started setting up camp, I started to realize there's no way I could have found these trails or this campsite researching on my own from a computer at home. The way I got here, through sheer coincidence, will forever be part of my personal legend.
So I guess we've been wheeling together like 2 whole days now.
Pretty much.
Met in the waiting line after our ferry got delayed. I think otherwise, like, we would have been like strangers passing in the night.
Yeah, well, I had my hood up because my starter was acting up, and then you came over and asked me how the 80 was doing, and just kind of struck it off. And buddy ahead of us there, Nick.
Yeah.
Got talking about Toyotas, talking about Land Cruisers, 4Runners, and you said you were doing your trip across Newfoundland. So.
Right. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your rig now that we're here?
Well, it's a 1991 Land Cruiser FJ80. Funny, that was how we kind of got started talking. Is you said you were from Kansas City, and I said that's Missouri, right? Yes, it is. This Land Cruiser actually picked up in Missouri, and so it's a bit of an oddball because it came from South Africa, but it's a left-hand drive. And it's kind of spec'd like an American truck, but also kind of not. So I'm not really sure where it's from, but guy exported it and used it he sold roof tents and stuff, and he used it to bring to the States and tour around with his gear and kind of show it off at the Overland Expo and stuff like that. So he decided to get rid of it, and I decided to pick it up. But it's got a few things done to it. It's got obviously a bit of bar work, winch, some spotlights. I'll pop the hood. It's the mighty pushrod 3FE. We got a little bit of splash in there.
Oh yeah.
It's got a pretty simple dual battery setup, just a house battery out of an RV and a solenoid that runs off the ignition on circuit. And this one's actually got a header, a custom header apparently, and a full 2.5-inch exhaust, so still not a powerhouse, but it helps it breathe a little bit better. It's got a snorkel. I put the roof rack on it. It's on my other Land Cruiser, and it's got a set of custom sliders on it. I guess the guy that did the exhaust was the same guy that made the sliders, and I guess a bit of a mess right now, but I'll show you the sort of my favorite part. Best money I've spent on the truck is Australian 5-speed conversion.
You don't see a whole lot of stick shifts in the States.
No, and so it really the automatic transmission in these is like huge and sucks a bunch of power. But between that and the much deeper gearing, it really helps you get everything you can out of the 3FE, which is what you need. But definitely noticed a big bump in my power, a small bump in my mileage. It's possible to get half decent mileage now if I really try, and it means I can now go up hills on the highway without shifting, so that's kind of nice. Got just a generic pop top roof tent that I just put on it. That was like a week ago. I had the soft shell kind, but of course they're a lot of work, so I decided to go to this stall. This will be my 3rd night in it so far, and definitely liking it so far. Round the back, got a Kmart tire carrier that came on it, and just like I think it's a Bush Ranger bag, standard ARB awning. Back here, again, it's a bit of a disaster. I'm on my way to work, and I am bringing some parts over for a friend of mine, but very just simple camping setup back here. A couple of Princess Auto drawers, Dometic fridge, stove is in there, dry stores bag, water tote, and this is a JDM tire carrier tailgate I'm bringing to a guy in St. John's. So not really much to see back here, but kind of working on refining the setup as we go.
Maybe you can tell us a little bit about what you're doing in Newfoundland.
Oh, what, like for work?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I work rotationally on a ship. I work for the Canadian Coast Guard. And so I work a month on and month off rotation, 4 weeks. So I was driving up this time because I've got a couple of friends. When I get off shift mid-July, they're going to fly up, meet me in St. John's, and then we're going to do basically what we're doing back across the province for about 5-6 days. So I kind of just threw everything in the truck, and I'll drive it out there, park, get on ship for a month, and then once we get off, we'll hit the trails again.
Cool.
Yeah.
We were talking about this a little bit, but like a lot of this like serendipity just kind of went away during the pandemic. So it's just great to be able to show up at a place and find some common ground, and I don't know, you wind up in these amazing, incredible places that you wouldn't have any other way.
100%. And I guess that's the part, I don't even think we mentioned that. Not the guy who owned this Land Cruiser, but the guy who was looking after it in the States, you know him.
Yes.
Like, go figure.
Right, so I wheeled with Jason back in October, and Jason was taking care of this rig. So
yeah, so it was Jason who I did all the correspondence for when I went to buy it. Talked to him on the phone, and he arranged to drop it off at the airport. Yeah, just like super. What are the chances of that?
Yeah, like
right?
Kansas City's not big.
No.
The Missouri's not big. The cruiser community, like across America, like Kansas City, Missouri is just a tiny, tiny fraction of that.
Yeah,
so.
and the cruiser community in Atlantic Canada is like, again, there's like a dozen of us maybe, and yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so you see a Toyota badge and some old trucks, and never know where it'll take you.
Yeah, they're pretty great, and yeah, I mean, look where we are.
Yeah. Gonna remember this one for a long time.
That's for sure.
We cracked a few cold ones by the fire and just enjoyed the incredible surroundings and extreme isolation. The next morning, we packed up camp and started making our way back to the main road. Keenan had some miles to make in order to report for duty the next day, but I still had some time to explore the western side of Newfoundland.
Keenan gave me a recommendation of another place that I could check out that's just outside of Gros National Park. And he said that it's just as spectacular as the place that we stayed last night, but in a completely different way. So I'm curious what that means. And last night's campsite was one of the most spectacular campsites I've ever stayed at. So I've got high expectations. This area looks pretty cool, so I can't wait to check it out and see what adventure lies ahead. come up to a pretty gnarly washout and went out to check my winch, make sure that everything still ran, and my controller's out of batteries. Luckily, I carry 2 spare batteries for that controller, and I should have the hardwiring back. We'll see if I manage to pack that. Yeah, it looks a little gnarly, and got to make sure that everything's in tip-top shape, aired down, blockers ready, winch ready. So, get to it. Battery surgery is complete on the controller, and we got the blue light. There's one. I just moved my recovery gear bag and my tool roll up into the cabin so that they're not back in the trunk caged in area, so in case anything did happen, I'd at least have access to my recovery gear and my tools through the cabin. All aired down. Should have better traction now. And finally, I'm going to do one more on-foot resi trip to look for any gotchas, rocks, roots, trees at the exit, trees at the entrance, so when I come back I know that I've got a way to get out. Let's go check it out. It's probably hard to tell, but there's a really steep breakover, but I'll probably be fine. Gravity's going to help me down. And this is the exit, still steep, but not as steep as the entrance. And good news is that I see relatively fresh looking tire tracks that aren't completely spun out. It's like there is some traction. Same on the entrance. It's not totally slick. When you walk it feels really slick. And then I've got a tree back there if I really need it to winch off of to get out of here. Trees in the distance over there that I can winch off of if I need to get out of here. Turning around in this area would be tough, but yeah, I think there's enough to maneuver around if you needed to. Well, we did it. It wasn't too much drama. I think if someone else were with me, we probably would have just tried to drive that and not even had to go through too much of a rigmarole of double checking everything. But yeah, it was a little intimidating because the 2 people, I talked to a park ranger quite a ways back. They said, there's a huge washout and I don't think you're going to be able to make it in your car, which was not encouraging. And then as I was coming down this road, I saw one other guy and he was in a side-by-side. And I asked him, how bad is the washout? And he said, yeah, it's terrible. You're not going to make it. So I had 2 opinions saying that we weren't going to make it. A little water crossing up here. I can see the bottom, so I think we're good. Kind of hemmed in, still not sure what's going on with this campsite. This one's a bit bigger water crossing. They've got it blazed though, so this must be where we cross. Well, I think I get it. This is going to be a pretty special place to spend the night. Yeah, there's not too many more of these left on the planet.
In Hamlet, Shakespeare remarked, "I could be bounded in a nutshell and count myself a king of infinite space." In my case, I arrived at this beach, hours from my last human contact, with a view out onto the endless ocean, and did indeed count myself a king of infinite space.
I don't know what to say. I've walked out my door the other day, hopped in my 4Runner, and it took me to a place like this. It's hard to imagine. I think being on the road is finally catching up with me, pushing hard every day. I was in a pretty good mood earlier in the day, driving through some of the mountain ranges out here. It's really pretty scenery. But then, once I talked to the park ranger, and they didn't think that I'd be able to make it out here, and that second guy didn't think that I was going to be able to make it out here. Pretty stressed. Kept it simple. Cooked hot dogs for lunch/dinner. Made some tea. And then just kind of spaced out for a while while I was drinking the tea. I was kind of in a dark place mentally. But it's starting to feel a little bit better, but I'm just going to crash out in the tent early today. Just trying to work through the mental toughness portion of being alone again. Just figuring out the second half of this trip. The weather's supposed to be a little bit nicer tomorrow. It's pretty gray. It was raining when I got here. So it'd be great to have dry weather for a little bit tomorrow and be able to move around and get spirits back up. It's kind of just hit me that I drove my 4Runner to a beach in Newfoundland. And I'm just hanging out on the beach that I drove to in my 4Runner. Yeah, that's a weird feeling. Good morning. I guess today is the 7th day. It's Wednesday. And the conditions are a little nicer on the beach this morning. Less wind, less spitting rain. Incredible place to spend the night. Just waves crashing all night, lulling you to sleep. So I think today I'm going to try to get back into Gros Morne Park. See if I can't catch a boat tour and check out some of the fjords.
Gros Morne is a national park and UNESCO World Heritage Site located on the western side of Newfoundland. It's known for its unique geology that forms sweeping mountains, huge valleys filled with lakes, beautiful coves, and epic waterfalls. The crown jewel of Gros Morne is Western Brook Pond, a tight glacial valley. It can only be visited by a guided multi-day trek or by reserving a boat tour. To keep my itinerary flexible and allow things like wheeling to a secluded lake and camping on an isolated beach, I had no reservations arranged in Newfoundland. My only hope of seeing Western Brook Pond was to hoof it back to cell service at the ranger station and try to call in a spot.
I love a good hill climb in the morning. Well, hey, I'm sure that's not shaky at all. I just went up a pretty greasy hill. This one looks pretty steep too and super greasy, so low range diff locked. Let's give it a go. Wasn't too bad. I say that all the time. Once you get done with something, it's always not too bad. Made it up and out of all those hard sections. I was a little worried on some of them. It looked super greasy, and especially like overnight, if it had rained or if it was raining when I was trying to get out, it could have been quite a challenge, but made it out without incident. The sun is starting to shine over here, so I'm hoping that we'll have a nice day to get out on the boat. It's amazing what a little rest and then the relief of getting back through all those hard sections can do for your mental state. So, feeling pretty good right now.
My optimism was quickly checked at the ranger station. The boat tour was fully booked. My only hope was to drive 90 minutes north, hike 2 miles to the dock, and hope a spot opened up.